Hi there guys, it's Alec here. Today I'm going to show you the value of enriched data. Alright, so data can often look fairly flat when it comes out of a database, and when you enrich that data, I want to show you guys how actually it enhances your ability to really grasp the data you're looking at. So what I've got here is a little database of invoices. So typically when you get out of Pastel, so that's the database we use, you get a account number when you look at sales data, for instance. When you look at the GL data, you typically get the account number that you can kind of structure. So let's just, for this purpose, say this account number 1000/000, and you've got a date field, and you've got a reference field, and then you have a description, which often is very flat, and then you've got an amount that you are basically, that's the amount of the tax invoice. So you'll see these are all tax invoices, and these are invoice numbers with various dates. All right. So what I've done here is I've just added a pivot table on top of this. So this will link directly into this data table over here. So when we look at this actual field settings, or the list that's available, everything over here is what's available. But if you start pivoting this, you'll actually see it's fairly flat. Let's just, for instance, take amount, and you'll see, okay, that's 3.78 million worth of sales. And let's take the account number. All right, so that's flat data. Now we can do something like, let's add a reference below that. Now it gives you a bit of data, but doesn't really help you to analyze this data. So what I've got here is a few fields that I'll add for us. Okay, so if we add year over year, I'll just add that into the table, and then I'll just refresh this data. You'll see that year pops in here. So check what happens once we just populate year into this pivot. Suddenly you see that, okay, wait, for my 2021 year I had 1.5 million and 2.2 million of sales in the two financial years, 2021 and 2022, which suddenly makes this value slightly more kind of effective. It just gives you a little bit more of a holistic picture in your mind. You can suddenly say certain things about this data. So let's add another field. Let's put month in here. So I'm going to add month, and I'm just going to add it to the table, and I'll refresh this data, and now you've got month. So see how this makes it more alive. So suddenly, if you now look at this data set, you've got, okay, not only do I know about it, that it's 1.1 million, I also know that it's, by month, this is the actual sales that were made. And the next year, so you can even compare it now. You can say, okay, so I made 100,000 versus 160 on month 1 of 2021 versus 2022. So you've got that comparability, and you didn't have to do much with that data. You just have to enrich the fields that already is actually inside of this date field, right? So let's add another one and see if we can, get this data really looking quite nice. So, tax invoice doesn't help, and invoice number doesn't help, but if I add a customer number or the customer name, suddenly I've got, another way of looking at the data in a far better way, and it just enhances my ability. So now we got customer. So let's, for instance, add the customer right here. Suddenly we can kind of like take away this accounts field and check what happens. We've got, okay, so we got company by month by year. Let's throw this month into the year column, into the actual into the months column, and you'll see that we got a nice data set coming through here. So specifically, I made a mistake. I actually planted a little error in this data set, but you'll see how visually you can suddenly see it. Let's just scroll over for a moment and see if we can find it. So you'll see it steps. It steps from company 1 to company 6 over the 6 months. And then the next 6 months, month 7 to 12, it steps. Look here, it steps again up, but wait, there's no step. There is 180, so it means that we actually invoiced customer 2 twice in this 22 financial year, on month 2 and on month 5, and then in the next 6-month period we only invoiced them once. So you can see how visually suddenly your data starts speaking to you without you having to kind of like analyze it in this format. All right, so let's enrich it a little bit more. Let's put customer category in here. All right, and let's just make that part of the data set. And once again, check how cool this becomes now. Now we can, for instance, take this customer category and let's pop it in there. Now we got something like Gauteng being, kind of like made available to us. Maybe a little bit difficult to see this way, so why don't we do something else with it? Why don't we just, take it out of there, but we rather add a slicer to it. Okay, now suddenly, if we look at this data set, okay, let's pop it here at the bottom, then we can say, okay, well, let's scroll out slightly more, see if we can fit this into a nice screen for us. There we go, as I'm helping. So let's go slightly in there, year numbers. Okay, so now we can see what did Gauteng do. Right, this is the Gauteng picture. This is the KZN picture. This is the Limpopo picture. That's the Northwest picture. So suddenly you've got, some more data in here that's really telling you a lot about this environment, a lot more than this data set actually did. And then the last one I wanted to add here was let's put items in here. Okay, so let's add this, and suddenly you'll see how that also helps you to see a different carving of your data. So I'm going to put this actual slicer here at the top. Let's just make sure we fit it nicely. Okay, and there we go. Okay, and then now we've got item over here. So let's add item, but let's go and say, well, we want to see itemized information first. So that's the one. We can either add it to the top. Now we've got by item. We actually have item 1 did a certain amount versus item 2 did more, 490, and then we did 530, and then we did 305 on item 4, and item 5 160,000 for the next year. Or we can do it differently. We can actually just pop it down to the bottom. Let's just see what we see then. Now we've got, well, company 1 we made sales to them of item 1, 2, and 5. And you can even do this. You can just kind of like highlight it, and you'll see where item 1 pops up, item 2 pops up, and item 3 pops up. So you've got all this nice information that you can suddenly see differently just from this small little data set that started like this. So you can see when you enrich your data, that's when you add information that may already exist, or go and find information and add it to a transactional level. Then suddenly you've got this great way of visualizing your data and making it speak to you. Now that's obviously what we do when we look at any Pastel Partner, Pastel Xpress, or Sage 50 Cloud database. We enrich the data, and I wanted to visualize and just show you guys how valuable it is when you enrich data. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for your time. Have a great day. Bye.